The headlines are clear, and their message is unmistakable. Around the globe, the world is moving on from America, forging new paths and alliances that no longer revolve around Washington. In Berlin, Chancellor Scholz stands before the Bundestag, calling for a European destiny that is independent from Washington's influence, urging his fellow leaders to chart their own course. In Tokyo, Prime Minister Kishida forges new security pacts with Australia and India, sidestepping the US and signaling a new era of regional cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. In Riyadh, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman greets China's Xi Jinping with unprecedented fanfare, marking a dramatic pivot toward the East and away from traditional American partnerships. These are not isolated events. They're part of a global shift, a coordinated movement as nations seek new alliances and redefine their futures. Once, America was the world's anchor, the indispensable nation at the center of every major decision and summit. Now allies openly question their reliance on Washington, voicing concerns about America's unpredictability and shifting priorities. Trust built over generations is eroding fast, replaced by caution and a search for alternatives. The global order America created is cracking, its foundations shaken by new realities and emerging powers. At the UN and G7, US influence is waning. Allies hedge their bets, building ties with rivals and exploring new partnerships that once seemed unthinkable. They seek stability as America grows unpredictable, looking to safeguard their economies and security in a world where US leadership can no longer be taken for granted. The world is rebalancing, and America risks being left behind as new centers of power emerge in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. The question is no longer if, but how quickly allies will seek independence, and how far they will go to secure their own interests. The whispers of doubt have become a roar, echoing in capitals and boardrooms, and Washington seems unprepared for the speed of change. The world is building a new order without waiting for America to catch up, and the consequences will shape the century to come. Trump's America First doctrine is no longer a slogan, it's policy. Steep tariffs on allies like Germany, Japan, and South Korea are seen as economic hostility, not negotiation. Withdrawal from climate accords and threats to leave the WTO have shocked partners. Allies can't plan for the future when US policy shifts overnight. Public berating of allies and questioning NATO's core commitments have shattered trust. Alliances depend on reliability, now partners look elsewhere for security. America's zero-sum approach is dismantling the cooperative order built after World War II. Allies see this not as tough bargaining, but as a deliberate break from the system that benefited all. Faith in America itself is fading. The fallout is global and immediate. In capitals around the world, leaders scramble to respond as markets tumble and headlines flash with uncertainty. The shockwaves ripple through every continent, upending long-standing assumptions about alliances and economic stability. Germany steps forward, rallying Europe towards strategic autonomy. The urgency is palpable as the EU accelerates plans for a unified defense force, seeking to reduce reliance on transatlantic security guarantees. New trade deals are inked at record speed, as European leaders work to shield their economies from external shocks and assert their independence on the world stage. Tariffs on European goods serve as a stark reminder that even the closest of ties offer no protection from US unpredictability. Industries across Europe brace for impact, forced to adapt to a new era of economic uncertainty and shifting rules. In Asia, Japan and South Korea intensify security talks, forging closer military and intelligence cooperation. Old rivalries are set aside as both nations recognize the need for unity in a rapidly changing region. Meanwhile, Southeast Asia drifts ever deeper into China's economic orbit, investments pour in, and new infrastructure projects tie the region's future to Beijing's ambitions. The US absence from regional trade negotiations has left a vacuum, one that Beijing is eager to fill. As American influence wanes, China's presence grows, reshaping the balance of power in Asia. In the Middle East, Saudi Arabia and the UAE diversify their partnerships, signing major deals with China and Russia. The region's leaders look eastward, hedging their bets as old certainties fade. Riyadh's move to sell oil in yuan is a historic shift, signaling that the old oil for security pact with Washington is losing its grip. The global energy market begins to realign, with new currencies and new players at the center. America's increasingly transactional approach has pushed its traditional allies to seek new partners. Trust is eroded, and the search for stability leads nations to forge fresh alliances. Each shift encourages others, creating a cascade of realignment. As one nation pivots, its neighbors follow, accelerating the transformation of the global order. The world is rewiring itself, forging new connections and trade routes that bypass Washington. The old center of gravity is shifting and a new network of influence is emerging. Once started, this process is hard to reverse. Each decision sets off a chain reaction, making it ever more difficult for the US to reclaim its former role. The dominoes are falling, and with each one, America finds itself more isolated. The world it once led is moving on, leaving Washington to watch from the sidelines. The global system is moving on, a new era is dawning, and the world's alliances are being rewritten, without America at the center. America First was never a one-way street. Now the pain is coming home. The EU and China retaliate with tariffs, hitting American industries and workers. Supply chains are disrupted, costs rise for manufacturers and consumers alike. Businesses face tough choices: absorb costs, raise prices, or find new suppliers. Uncertainty discourages investment and growth. Washington's response? More tariffs and subsidies, fueling a vicious cycle. Protectionism distorts markets and invites more retaliation. America is being left out as new trade blocs form. The belief that America could punish the world without consequence is collapsing. The economic boomerang is real, and it's hitting home. The fallout is now personal for Americans. Supermarket trips reveal higher prices and empty shelves. Tariffs and supply chain chaos at work. Imported goods cost more. Some products vanish altogether. Families feel the squeeze as living costs rise but wages stagnate. Small businesses struggle with higher costs and unreliable supplies, forcing layoffs or closures. The policy meant to protect jobs is putting many at risk. Public anxiety grows as the old sense of abundance fades. Consumer confidence drops, slowing the economy further. The sight of empty shelves and rising prices is unsettling. Faith in institutions erodes, fueling instability. The consequences of turning inward are felt in every home and on every main street. America's retreat from the world is hitting where it hurts most, at home. America's retreat hasn't left a vacuum, others are filling it fast. Europe finalizes trade deals with South America and Asia, bypassing the US. The EU builds a self-reliant economic bloc, less vulnerable to American politics. In security, regional pacts replace the old US-centered model. Australia, Japan, and India deepen trilateral cooperation, building their own security frameworks. New institutions like the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and BRICS expand, challenging US dominance. These groups represent a huge share of the world's population and economy. The US is no longer the indispensable nation. Others are setting the rules. With each new coalition, America's influence shrinks. A world without Washington at the table is becoming the new normal. The alarms are blaring. Experts warn of real danger ahead. The IMF and World Bank downgrade US growth forecasts, citing trade tensions and policy chaos. Protectionism disrupts supply chains and risks a global slowdown. Economists warn of stagflation, rising prices, slowing growth, and job losses. Confidence in US economic leadership is eroding. The administration's attacks on the Federal Reserve and erratic policy spook investors. Foreign governments reduce their US debt holdings, threatening America's borrowing power. The dollar's role as the world's reserve currency is under threat. As countries trade oil and other currencies, a key pillar of US power weakens. The privilege of cheap borrowing is fading. The experts see a storm coming. Will Washington listen? America is sailing into dangerous waters. If current trends continue, America risks becoming increasingly isolated, militarily powerful, yet diplomatically and economically sidelined on the world stage. Once seen as a beacon of hope and leadership, the nation now faces the possibility of standing alone, its influence waning as old alliances fray and new global powers rise. Without trusted alliances and strong partnerships, global threats, ranging from terrorism to climate change, will weigh heavier on the US alone, making it harder to respond effectively and protect its interests. The global commons, once stabilized by American leadership, could descend into chaos, with conflicts and crises spreading unchecked across borders. An isolated America would be poorer, with fewer opportunities for its people, limited access to global markets, and a slower pace of innovation as collaboration with international partners dwindles. The American dream, the promise of prosperity and upward mobility, would slip further out of reach for millions as economic hardship and uncertainty become the new normal. But this future isn't inevitable. America still has the power to change course, to reclaim its role as a global leader, and restore hope at home and abroad. Change is possible, New leadership could rebuild alliances, rejoin global agreements, and demonstrate a renewed commitment to cooperation and shared progress. It would take humility, patience, and a return to the shared values that once united America with its allies, values like democracy, respect, and mutual understanding. Rebuilding trust will be hard, requiring both domestic renewal and international outreach, but it's the only way back to respected leadership and a brighter future. The world hasn't given up on America yet. Many still look to the US for guidance, innovation, and hope, waiting to see if it will rise to the challenge. If America fails to act, others will fill the void, reshaping the global order in ways that may not align with American values or interests. A multipolar or even bipolar world awaits, with America's influence diminished and its voice less heard in the decisions that shape our future. The nation stands at a crossroads, between isolation and decline, or renewal and leadership. The path chosen now will echo for generations. The choice will define not just the next decade but the entire century. The world is watching, and the future is still unwritten.